Alright guys, here is the second video for Thursday and Friday with dealing with triangle congruency. And so it's not going to be super long or anything, but I want you to make sure that you understand what the different congruencies are that we use for triangle congruency. So the first one is side, side, side. So once you know that your sides of all your triangles are congruent, then you can say that your triangles are congruent. Side angle side, or SAS, means that you have the two sides and the angle that is between them. So as you go around, you have the angle that's between them. And then if you reverse that, you have angle side angle. And so you have two angles and then the side that's between them. And then you can have angle angle side, which is just two angles next to each other and then that side on either end of it. And then for a right triangle, you can have a hypotenuse leg. So if you know that you have a right triangle and you have the hypotenuse and the leg, one of the legs that are congruent, then you can use that. So we're going to just look through some examples, and then if you have questions about the proofs and things, those are actually in your lessons. But if you have questions about it, then feel free to K-mail me your questions. Okay, so when we look at this, which postulate or theorem proves the congruent statement? So one of the things that we have is we're trying to prove that these two triangles are congruent. We have that these two angles are right angles. We know that these two sides are congruent. And so we need to see, we have an angle and a side. Well, the one that we want is probably angle side angle. So we got to see if we can prove that the last angle is that they're congruent. And they do happen to be, and it's because of vertical angles. Because whenever you have two lines that intersect, they form vertical angles. So this one is by angle side angle. Okay. When we look at the next one, we're looking at triangle LKJ and triangle MJK. And so we have angle, and then we have the side, and then we have the other angle. So again, we have angle, side, angle. Here we have two sides, and then QP, we can always say, is congruent to itself because it's of the reflexive property, because a segment is congruent to itself. So we end up with side, side, side. Alright, so this one, we have right angles here. We know these are congruent, but we know nothing about anything else. We don't know anything about the diagonal. We could say the diagonal is congruent to itself, but that puts us at side, side, angle, and we don't have any of those. But because we have right triangles, we can say that the hypotenuse, which happens to be the diagonal, since it's congruent to itself, this is actually an example of where the hypotenuse leg is the answer. So this is by hypotenuse leg, because the hypotenuse is the diagonal. It's congruent to itself by the reflexive property, and then that makes the triangles congruent. Alright, so this one, we have an angle and an angle, but we know nothing about the sides. So when you have an angle and an angle, it doesn't matter if you have all the angles. If you know nothing about the sides, notice that all of our triangle congruencies want something to do with a side. So we need to we need to use the, so it would be none. Alright, so here we have an angle and an angle, angle and angle, and we do know now that the sides are congruent. So this is angle, angle, side.